One of the biggest shifts in the manifesting state actually happens quietly, not when you force yourself to think positively, not when you monitor every thought, not when you repeat affirmations perfectly. The real shift often begins when you stop fighting yourself. A lot of people are exhausted without realizing why. Not because manifestation is difficult, but because they are constantly trying to control their internal experience, trying to force calmness, trying to force detachment, trying to force belief, trying to force themselves to stay in the state, and eventually, the mind and body become tired from all the internal pressure, because underneath all that effort is one message: I am not allowed to feel anything except certainty. But human beings do not work that way. Sometimes you feel confident, sometimes you feel emotional, sometimes you feel calm, sometimes old fears briefly return. That does not automatically mean you failed. And strangely enough, many people begin stabilizing the moment they stop treating every uncomfortable feeling like an emergency. For example, maybe you notice anxiety appear for a moment. The old version of you immediately panics. You start searching for reassurance, trying to correct your thoughts, trying to fix your vibration. But now, you simply notice the feeling without turning it into a crisis. You let the emotion pass through your system without attaching your identity to it, and that changes everything. Or maybe you have a difficult day emotionally. The old version of you would have concluded, I ruined my manifestation. But now, you allow yourself to have a human moment without assuming the entire process collapsed. That is emotional maturity. Or maybe you stop forcing yourself to constantly affirm, not because you gave up, but because the obsession started feeling unnatural. You stop repeating words from panic. You stop trying to overpower every negative thought immediately, and slowly, your mind becomes quieter. Not because you controlled it harder, but because you stop fighting every internal experience. This matters deeply because many people accidentally create a second layer of suffering. The first layer is the original fear or insecurity. The second layer is fighting themselves for having the fear at all. Now, they are not only anxious, they are anxious about being anxious. They are not only uncertain, they are afraid that uncertainty means failure. That constant self monitoring becomes exhausting. And exhaustion is not the manifesting state. Peace is, not forced peace, real peace. The kind of peace that allows emotions to move without turning every feeling into a spiritual problem. The kind of peace that says, I can experience this emotion without abandoning myself. That is a completely different relationship with yourself. And ironically, that softer relationship often stabilizes the state faster than constant force ever could. Because when you stop fighting yourself, you stop reinforcing the idea that something inside you is broken. You stop treating yourself like a problem that constantly needs correction. You begin responding to yourself with steadiness instead of fear. And from that place, the nervous system slowly starts trusting safety again. You stop needing perfection. You stop needing constant emotional control. You stop needing every moment to feel right. And that creates space for the state to become natural instead of managed. For example, you may notice yourself waking up and no longer immediately checking your emotional state. You stop asking, am I manifesting correctly today? You stop evaluating every feeling. You stop trying to control every mental movement. And because of that, you begin feeling more present in your actual life, more grounded in ordinary moments, more connected to yourself outside constant self monitoring. That is not failure. That is stabilization. The old version of you survived through control. The new version of you learns safety through trust. And trust feels quieter than force. So if you have been exhausting yourself trying to do manifestation correctly, take a breath and notice something. You may not need more control. You may need a gentler relationship with your own mind. You may need to stop fighting every temporary emotion. You may need to allow yourself to be human without assuming you ruined your future. Because the state becomes strongest when it stops feeling like a performance. And that usually begins the moment you stop fighting yourself. Subscribe and enter your manifesting state.